Two missions to the moon, 57 years apart, but they are nothing alike. On April 1st, 2026, NASA's Artemis II lifted off carrying 4 astronauts toward the moon. Victor Glover, the first black person to travel beyond Earth orbit; Christina Koch, the first woman to travel to the moon; Jeremy Hansen, the first Canadian to leave Earth orbit entirely; Reid Wiseman, mission commander. Their onboard computer was 20,000 times faster than anything Apollo carried. They traveled farther from Earth than any human in recorded history, but they never entered lunar orbit. They never attempted a landing. This is not Apollo. And the 3 reasons why change everything you think you know about going to the moon. The first thing that separates Artemis II from Apollo is the crew itself. Apollo's crews were all male, all American, all military test pilots, selected for Cold War symbolism. The mission was simple: beat the Soviet Union. Artemis II's crew represents something fundamentally different. For the first time in human spaceflight history, a mission beyond Earth orbit carries people from more than one country and more than one demographic. Hansen's presence represents genuine international partnership. Canada's Canadarm3 robotic system earned the country a real operational seat. The crew itself is the first argument that Artemis II is not a sequel to Apollo. It is the opening chapter of something Apollo was never designed to be. Who the crew is matters less than why the mission was designed the way it was. Apollo moved at a pace that accepted extraordinary risk because the alternative was being beaten. Apollo 8 launched just months after the Saturn V rocket suffered violent shaking during testing and engine failures. Engineers cleared a crewed mission in weeks. That wasn't confidence. It was calculated desperation born from Cold War competition. Artemis II took a completely different approach. After Artemis I's uncrewed test flight in 2022, engineers spent years improving every system. Rocket booster separation motors were rotated 15 degrees to improve clearance. The Orion heat shield was redesigned after showing unexpected charring. These weren't crises, they were data points. The iterative engineering culture of Artemis treats every anomaly as information that strengthens the next mission. Apollo was designed to succeed once under political pressure. Once the flag was planted, the program was canceled despite having hardware already built. Artemis exists to build permanent infrastructure: the Lunar Gateway Station, surface habitats, resource extraction systems, and the technological foundation for eventual Mars missions. Every component must work reliably and repeatedly because nothing is an endpoint, everything is a foundation. Patience replaced adrenaline, purpose replaced politics. The second thing that separates Artemis II from Apollo is a technology gap so vast that comparing the two programs is like comparing a hand-drawn map to satellite navigation. The Apollo guidance computer had approximately 74 kilobytes of memory. Orion's onboard systems process information 20,000 times faster and carry 128,000 times more memory. The computers managing life support, navigation, and communications can diagnose developing problems before the crew notices any symptom. The spacecraft itself has undergone an equally profound transformation. Orion is built by engineers across 2 continents. The European Service Module provides Orion's propulsion, electrical power, and thermal regulation. Remove it and Orion cannot fly. That interdependence is intentional. Artemis is genuinely international at the engineering level, not just the crew level. Orion also carries a dedicated radiation shelter that Apollo never had. The spacecraft carries laser-based communication systems transmitting data at speeds that make Apollo's radio systems appear ancient. Mission control in Houston looks identical to 1965, but the technology inside is from a completely different century. During Apollo, flight controllers monitored data on paper printouts and used slide rules. Today, a single Artemis console displays more data than the entire Apollo mission control room processed simultaneously. Global relay networks provide continuous coverage with no blackouts. The room looks the same. The capability belongs to a different era entirely. The third thing that separates Artemis II from Apollo is the trajectory itself. When Apollo 8 reached the moon in December of 1968, It performed a lunar orbit insertion burn, firing its engine to slow down enough to be captured by lunar gravity. If that engine had failed, the spacecraft would have crashed into the moon or been flung into deep space permanently. The engine system had no backup. Every Apollo crew was betting their lives on one engine working perfectly twice. Artemis 2 eliminated that gamble entirely through a free return trajectory. After the initial burn sends Orion toward the moon, the spacecraft loops 6,400 miles beyond the lunar far side, then uses the combined gravitational pull of Earth and Moon to bring the crew home naturally. No additional engine burns required. Physics does all of that work. Picture the moon as a curved ramp positioned precisely in space. Orion approaches, swings around the back at exactly the right distance, and the gravitational geometry launches it home like a slingshot. If every system aboard Orion failed completely after the initial burn, computers, engines, communications, everything, the crew would still return to Earth. The trajectory itself is the safety system. This is why Artemis 2 never entered lunar orbit. Entering orbit would have required engine burns, reintroducing the exact failure risk Apollo accepted and Artemis was designed to eliminate. On April 6, 2026, the Artemis 2 crew reached 406,740 kilometers from Earth. They broke the distance record Apollo 13 had held for 56 years. Yet, despite breaking the all-time distance record, they never entered lunar orbit. Apollo 13's record came from catastrophe. Their spacecraft was crippled and the crew barely survived. Artemis 2's record came from deliberate design. One record was set by survival, the other was set by engineering. Apollo was a sprint to a finish line. Once the political goal was achieved, the program was canceled. Artemis 2 is the opposite. A 10-day proof of concept designed to validate every system needed for the missions that follow. Artemis 3 will land humans on the lunar surface. Artemis 4 will dock with the lunar gateway. Future missions will build habitats, extract resources, and establish infrastructure that makes permanent lunar presence possible. Apollo went to the moon and stopped. Artemis went to the moon to build the foundation for never stopping. Three things, three fundamental differences. A crew that represents international humanity rather than Cold War nationalism. Technology 20,000 times more powerful built by genuine partners. A trajectory that uses gravity to bring the crew home without gambling on a single engine. On April 6, 2026, 4 humans floated farther from Earth than any people in history. They didn't land on the moon. They did something equally important. They proved that returning to deep space is real, sustainable, and built on foundations strong enough to last for generations. Apollo showed us the moon was reachable. Artemis 2 showed us it's returnable, repeatedly and safely for everyone. If this changed how you see humanity's future in space, subscribe and turn on notifications. Which difference surprised you most? The crew, the technology gap, or the trajectory? Drop your answer in the comments below. The next chapter of lunar exploration is being written right now.